Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Would Somebody Testify podcast. I have Sister Robin Page here to tell about getting healed of post-concussion syndrome. So, welcome.
Thank you.
So, you want to start out by telling how exactly you got a concussion?
Yes, so I was had went to Walmart and was getting Jonathan out of the van, and the lift was coming down, and something fell underneath the lift. So I reached down to pick it up and did not see the arm of the lift, and rammed my forehead right into that, and instantly my forehead was sunken in, and then it went to a lump. And looked at Jonathan, and he started to laugh, and I told him, don't you dare laugh, because it hurt. And I sat down in the van for a little bit, called Rebecca. She was a couple minutes away. She came. We went in and got what I needed to get, and I went home and was very sick for several days. And then as time rolled on, I started having problems with my blood pressure going up, not really knowing what was going on. So they was treating me for high blood pressure. Well, then my blood pressure was dropping real low, so they had to take me off of that medicine. And I was having a lot of unbalance. I would be off balance. And they said, well, dizziness. And I'm like, well, it's not really dizziness, but it's off balance. I felt like I was walking, leaning to the right all the time. And so my doctor was checking, and so she sent me to a ears, nose, throat specialist to see if I had something, inner ear disorder or something. So they checked me for vertigo. They checked me for inner ear disorders and for crystals. They get dislodged in the ears and move around in the canals. And that's what they was pretty sure I had. Was that had, but after they ran all the testing and everything, all that was negative. So they said, go back to your primary care doctor and let them start all over again. So I went back to her and we started talking. Well, in the meantime, Jonathan is going to physical therapy, and I had got to the point, what usually would take me about 20 minutes to dress Jonathan for the day would take me sometimes 2 hours, because I would get so off balance that I would have to go sit down, and I said, calm my head down, and then get up and go do a little bit more. I got where I was not able to do crowds, loud noises, grocery store. There was multiple times I walked in and became so overwhelmed that I got very sick at my stomach. Turned around, walked out, went home, told Samuel, you're going to have to go to the store and get what we need. And so going to therapy with Jonathan, the ride would always make me pretty sick. And we had from Homedale to Boise, which was an hour drive. And so his therapist, she said, what is going on with you? Because she noticed I wasn't doing a lot of hands-on with Jonathan. Samuel was doing all the hands-on, which was generally I did everything with the therapist. And so she said, what's going on? So I told her, and she said, you need to see our vestibular therapy, one of them. And so I went back to my doctor and talked to her, and she said, yes, let's get a referral. Let's get you going over there. So I went in, and little things that we take for granted, like looking up to the stars at night. I love to stargaze. I couldn't do that without getting sick. I couldn't look up over my shoulder either way. I could not look down at the ground. I could not be walking and turn around, because that would just really throw me off. Busy environments, like I said, the grocery store was just a no-no. I couldn't do that. I couldn't tell you the last time I went into a store. So these were things that the therapist started working with me on. Just simple things as walking and looking up. walk, take a few more steps, look the other direction, up, look down, as you're walking. These were things that were very, very difficult for me. Simple daily living things were very hard. And it was just hard because I'm a caregiver and I could not perform my duties very well. It took me forever to do anything. My house, needless to say, things didn't get done in timely manners because I could not wash a load of dishes at one time. I would have to sit down and calm my head down because it felt like just my head was going everywhere else, than just, it's hard to explain, but anyway. So the therapist started working with me on these different aspects. She said, we're going to do a minimum of 8 sessions, 1 day a week. And I was, the first session, that first week, I felt quite a bit of improvement. But then after the second session, between the second and third session, I felt like I went backwards. And so that's the way it was. It was an up and down situation. You feel like you're getting better, and then all of a sudden something slaps you back and you just back where you began. And she told me it was common, but that I was a very good candidate for the vestibular therapy, that she was going to really work with me. So I had went to my 4th session, and I was feeling a little bit better. Well, right before the 4th session, we actually decided to run down to Arcata fellowship meeting. And anyway, by the time we got down there, I wasn't feeling well. The road was windy. I got sick. And then we get in there and we have to sit towards the back. And our church, I do okay because I sit right up front. So I don't see anybody other than just, the preacher or whoever's up singing. And so by the time service was over, I was feeling really, really sick. I pushed through it because that's one thing the therapist told me, says sometimes you have to push through to overcome some of these hurdles. And so I was pushing through it, and we went out and ate outside instead of eating inside with everybody. We went outside, and I hate to say, but Jonathan was kind of getting tired and stuff, so I used him as my excuse to go get in the motorhome and lay down because I was feeling very stressed and overwhelmed. And so then we turned around and, the next day we came home. Sunday I ended up not going to church because I just couldn't hardly get up and move around. So that's kind of how it would go. Things you wouldn't think would bother you, and it's just like you would become totally overwhelmed with it. And so that was the end of July. And then Brother Jeremy Buzzard had his camp meeting the first weekend of August. And we went on Thursday night. And by the time service was over, I was not feeling well at all. I was very overwhelmed. My head was just, I felt like I was in brain fog again. And so I went home. Took me a while to get Jonathan all settled in bed. Friday night, Samuel said, well, are you going to go to church? Because Friday I did nothing. I could not function that day. So I did very little. And it's time to get ready for church. And he asked me, you going to go? And I said, yep, I'm going to push through. I'm going to go. And that was August the 2nd. August the 3rd was Jonathan's anniversary date of his drowning, which would be 19 years. And so I was going with the hope, desire of Jonathan's healing. Because, what better time for him to be healed as his anniversary time. So we get to church Friday night, and like I said, I'm not feeling the greatest, but, I push through and I go. And service starts off, and it gets higher and higher, and just actually Samuel was up singing, And the power of God was just falling. And the more the power of God fell, the sicker I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just like, to the point my stomach was churning, and I'm just like, oh, I'm getting sick. And I sat there, and after a little bit, I'm like, this is just the devil. Because this service, the power of God was so strong. And so I stood up to go forward for prayer. And just as I stepped into the one aisle, a sister started shouting in front of me. And so I had to turn and go around the back to the other side of the church. And about midway up, my vision just kind of went. And sometimes that would happen.
When do you mean did it kind of go black, red, fuzzy?
I could see, but I wasn't. It's hard to explain. Let me think. I could see things, but I wasn't comprehending what I was seeing.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
A little bit. I've never had that happen. So it doesn't quite
I had never had it.
I
I had it happen a couple times throughout this ordeal, but not that intense. And so I finally, just wherever I was at, which was, I felt like I was about maybe 2/3 of the way up. And I just said to Brother Jeremy, I need prayer. I need prayer now. And I just kind of felt my way to the altar and sat down, and they started praying for me. And it wasn't like a bolt of lightning, nothing like that. But I felt God touch me. But, I felt better. I wasn't sick at my stomach. My head wasn't feeling like it was going everywhere. I didn't feel off balance, nothing. I just felt better. And I went home. The rest of the service, went on for a little while longer, just really an awesome service. We went home, got up the next morning, was Saturday. We get ready to come back to church. And I didn't think nothing about it. I got Jonathan dressed, and everything's good. I get to church, and Sister Anna walks over and asks me how I was doing. And I said, I didn't get car sick coming over. And I started looking up both directions. I looked down and I said, I couldn't do this yesterday. I couldn't do this. And I said, and you know what? I dressed Jonathan in one setting. I said, I've been healed. And it was kind of a unique situation, because I knew God touched me, but I didn't know to the extent till the next day that God had totally healed me. And so I was just praising God all day. I felt so good. I went home and I was able to do things. I tire real easy still yet, and the doctor, they've told me that's normal. You've been a year that your body's not let you do things. And so your body is still weak from all that. And so I went on that week, had an awesome week. And on Thursday, I went back to therapy, and the therapist walked out and she said, so how are you doing? I said, I'm doing great. She says, oh, great, huh? I haven't heard that one yet. She said, well, let's go on back and get started. And so we get back into the room, and she said, so how are you feeling? And I said, I'm feeling great. And she said, well, tell me what's been going on. And I said, well, let me tell you about Friday night. So I told her about the service and everything, and told her God healed me. And she said, okay, well, let's just put it to the test. So she ran me through several of our exercises and things that she would have me do. And, looking up, looking around, walking into a 360 turn would throw me off every single time. I did it with no problem, no losing my balance or anything. And so she did, probably 20 minutes of stuff. And pretty soon she said, all right, go back to the room. And usually she would say, go to the first room on your left. Because by this point, I couldn't remember where I was supposed to go. And so she said, go back to the room. And she stood and watched me. And I went right back to the room where, we were at. She walks in and she shuts the door. She clapped her hands and she says, "Hallelujah. I love it when prayer works." And it was just such an awesome feeling to be able to testify to her. And she see firsthand how much better I was doing. And so yesterday, Jonathan had physical therapy. And she was in there and she seen me and she's working with another patient. She said, "I want to talk to you." So after she got through with her patient, she come over and she said, "So how are you doing?" I said, "I'm doing great." I said, "We went to a church meeting in Kentucky," and I said, "The noise did not bother me. The crowd of 200 people did not bother me. I'm doing great." And she said, "That is awesome. God is so good." And God is so good. And I can now I'm back to being able to take care of Jonathan like I need to be, and taking care of my grandbabies, and God is good.
That's good. For those of you who do not know, her son Jonathan, how old is he?
He'll be 35 the 21st.
Okay, 35, as she alluded to, had a drowning accident. His body doesn't work very well, but his mind works fine. If you ever get to know him, able to have a conversation with him through his computer thing, you'll find quite a character.
Yes.
So that covered everything. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Brian, or Stephen, for having me.
You're not the first one to nearly make that mistake on there. Oh, I did have one thing. Sorry.
Yes.
So when you said you hit your head and your head dented it, I assume that means there's a bump and you don't mean your skull dented.
Right. I reached up to touch it and I could feel my forehead concaved in.
Okay.
But then as I was holding it, I could feel the knot coming out.
Okay.